minutes or so? 10 minutes or anything?
We have 10 minutes.
I'm just waiting for the screen.
Sure.
Good evening and welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting Thursday, July 18th at 6:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:31. First item on the agenda tonight would be the approval of the minutes from the July 11th, 2019 meeting. Are there any questions or comments about the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from July 19th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next on the agenda would be public comment. We'd like to limit this spot to 5 minutes per person. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak tonight in the public comment section? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to recognitions, Dr. Carpenter.
I have a few. First, I would like to recognize Aiden Katoski, who is recognized as the 2019 NEED Project's Youth Energy Leadership Award. The award was created to recognize students who go above and beyond in their pursuit of energy knowledge and teaching of others. It's a prestigious award designed to honor students demonstrating effective leadership skills, energy knowledge throughout their association with NEED. The award includes a $1,500 scholarship to be used for post-high school education plans. Second, I'd like to let folks know that Monomoy's high school history teacher, Richard Houston, was named Teacher of the Year by the American Battlefield Trust. Gary Adelman, Chief Historian for the American Battlefield Trust, said, in bestowing this award, we look for passionate educators who creatively go above and beyond the call of duty. But in the end, our decision was made easier because Richard's nomination submitted by a colleague was among the best, if not the best, the Trust had ever received. And then lastly, I just want to acknowledge that we have a number of our students, 9 of them, who are attending the ASLP, Mass Maritime Summer Institute. We have Molly Funk there, Jordan McRoberts, Isaiah Woodland, Sally Watson, Alexis Aruda, Talia Tambalio Perez, Jack Ray, Abigail Constantine, and Catherine Nash. And I had a pleasure today to go visit the SLP program and see some of our students there, as well as see some of the facilities that Mass Maritime has. And I believe I had heard that they are now considered to be the 3rd best return on your investment for a public school in the country. So it's a pretty impressive resource to have right there, and I know that they provide our students and other students that belong with collaborative membership districts a lot of great resources for greatly defrayed or even waived costs.
Great, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda would be in reports and discussions, the Monomoy Regional High School 2019-2020 Student and Parent Handbook.
Good evening. Prior to the handbook, you should have received a copy of a memorandum which highlights the changes, and also a copy of the draft 2019-2020 handbook. In addition to the routine changes in terms of names, in terms of dates, in terms of wording clarifications, we do have 3 or 4 more significant changes. The first one being the health services section of the handbook. Cheryl Dufault, our nurse leader who's here tonight, worked very hard with the nurses throughout the district to review what is in each handbook regarding health services and coordinate that, compile that, so that we have one document that can be placed in each handbook. And I believe at one of the previous school committee meetings, the Harwich Elementary School presented that as well. So you should be up to speed on that. But it is attached as an appendix to this document, if you need a refresher on that. In terms of the high school, we do have two little notes that we'd like to add at the end of that health services section. One is we'd like our students to have a pass from a staff member in order to access the health office, unless, of course, it's an emergency. And second, we just want to reinforce that a student who's dismissed from school with an illness would not be able to come back to school to participate in after-school activities that day. So those are the two little notes that we tacked on to the end of that for the high school. The second item is the CIPA, Children's Internet Protection Act, which is a federal act. And in order to protect students and be aware of internet safety, this was put into place. And as a result, for Monomoy to comply with this, we needed to come up with a policy of not allowing students to utilize their own personal devices, laptops, tablets, on the district network here. So that was put into place. In fact, Jim Birchfield actually came and spoke to the entire student body about this. We hold town hall meetings at the start of the school year, and then also at the change of the semester, end of January, early February. And it was either of those, remember if it was September or if it was the change of the semester, but Jim addressed each grade level about this policy and the intent of this, answered any questions. So the student population is aware of this. We just never put it into the handbook at that point because it was after the school year started, so we are inserting that. I also have a note at the end. I did notice in a previous agenda that there was a subcommittee report about first reading for the technology acceptable use policy. So once that is finalized, I will work with Jim to insert whatever appropriate pieces of that into our handbook, because we do have an old statement that's in there, but it is old. It's been in there for a while. So I'll get together with Jim and we can put what's appropriate in the handbook. The third item, the third and fourth, they go hand in hand. We're really excited about this at the high school, and this has to do with vaping. As you know, vaping is the wave that has hit society in general, not just our school, throughout the nation. Schools and organizations are dealing with this issue. Previously, for a vaping violation for a student, we would suspend them for multiple days. But we're rethinking that. It really doesn't serve any purpose. The student's out of school, they're missing instruction, and they're not getting any education about vaping and what this really means. So we're doing away with that, and we are inserting a new statement into the handbook about vaping. I'm not going to read that, you have that. But basically, what we are going to do is we are going to run an 8-week program called Project Connect. It will be facilitated by Cheryl and our other part-time school nurse, Sarah, who will be trained in this program, and also our health educator, Stacy Yarnell. And they will put students through this 8-week program. Once a week, it will run during JOSM hour. So students will have time to do other things during the week for JOSM hour, but one day a week they will be obligated to participate in Project Connect. I'm going to have Cheryl come up when I'm done to share a few slides with you about Project Connect to give you a little overview of what that's all about. The way it will work is when we have a vaping violation, I will call the parent and I will meet with the student, the parent, and Cheryl or Stacy, the health educator, both, one, whoever's available, and we'll have a serious discussion about vaping, about the seriousness of this, and then we will enroll the student in the Project Connect program. And then Cheryl and Stacy will take it from there. They will organize the sessions, and students will be required to participate in this. If for some reason they don't follow through on that commitment, then we will put some alternate consequence in place for them. The nice thing about this also is we would like to not just have this be as a result of getting caught, but we would like students to look at this as a way to do something proactively. So as we publicize the program, we're hoping that students who do vape and who see it as a problem and want to stop will volunteer and self-select to participate in this program. So when the program runs, there'll be mandated attendees, and then there'll be some voluntary attendees, which will lead for a nice student-based discussion group for this Project Connect program. So we're very excited about doing something proactive and productive about the vaping situation. And before I turn it over to Cheryl, I'm going to move on to the chemical health regulation. This goes hand in hand with vaping. As you remember, or if not, I'll refresh your memory, but with the chemical health regulation, if a student is found in violation of this with some type of chemical product, it's a broader range than vaping. It can be alcohol, it can be marijuana, it can be a number of items. Students had the option to participate in a Healthy Choices program, another educational program that is of our own design in order to reduce the consequence for them. So we're going to keep that in place, but when we find that a student violated this due to vaping, we are going to substitute the Project Connect program for that student instead of the Healthy Choices program. So that's what the number 4 is all about. Do you have any questions for me before I turn this over to Cheryl to give you a good overview of Project Connect?
Oh, Tina, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
No, it's okay. First of all, thank you for the vaping piece. And I don't know if Cheryl's going to address this or if I can ask about the physical exams. That is new, is that correct?
When Cheryl comes
Oh,
up
so
for the
she's gonna
vaping,
cover
we'll
that?
turn
Okay.
it over to her because that's her bailiwick.
Okay, perfect.
Much more than mine.
Thank you.
Before I turn it over to Cheryl, I'm going to show you a few things, and then I'll just walk around quickly, because I'm not sure how up on vaping you are, but I am. This is a Juul. This is what you use to vape with. In the top, there's a little pod that has the liquid in it, and then this gets plugged in, it gets heated, and then you inhale this. So that's a basic Juul and a basic pod. Pods come like this. Kind of looks like the old-fashioned gum with the dentine, and you push it out in the back, and that's a pod. And then for your Juul, there's a little device on the end that you plug in to heat it up. And you could plug it into the side of your computer and have it in the classroom, and somebody would think, oh, that's just some device, technology device. So that's a Juul. And then this is a little more sophisticated. We do not see a lot of this. This is another device to vape, much more sophisticated, and the bottom opens up and there are cartridges that get plugged in, which usually they contain a marijuana product, liquid product, a THC product, and they're usually vials that are round and you can see the liquid in them. And they're usually labeled, so you can clearly identify that there's THC extract in that. We really don't see this very often. This unfortunately came up the end of June. We did find this one here, but this is rare for the high school, knock on wood. So I'm just going to walk around and just so that you can see these close up, and then Cheryl can come up and she can entertain the question regarding the physicals, and she can give you an overview of Project Connect.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more question before you leave.
Yes.
Kind of a follow-up, the vaping issue. And you may have said it and I did not hear it. In addition to counseling with the moms and dads and whoever's you've caught, have you folks thought of, well, it's not really thinking, just have a town meeting for the entire 8th grade class, or the 7th, or the 6th, because I think vaping, whenever this is beginning, I've got a grandkid who's 8th grade, he's about to be 9th. And, you know, he shares with me, so I'm sure it's, wherever you want to say it's beginning. So one, have you already given an overview to everybody in a class, 8th grade, by team or however you wished? And secondly, back in the day, we used to confiscate everything. So one of my drawers had all of this fun stuff. Do you confiscate these things? Plus, they're fairly expensive. I never was a smoker, and then when I do go into a variety store, I see it's $11 or $12 or $13 for a pack of cigarettes or whatever the price. This too must be
Oh, yes.
pretty dear.
Yes. First of all, we have not addressed the entire school as a body regarding this, but health classes have been doing that. The 8th grade team has been doing that. We do have a plan to address the entire school come September. And even to take it further, which Cheryl will get into a little bit, with some parent universities, some education for the community, for parents. We will have some faculty meetings with teachers and staff so that they can get the education on this and see the products as well. So definitely, we will be doing that. I too have that drawer, and at the end of the year, I clean it out. Of course, anything that's illegal of a marijuana category, I turn that over to Officer Clark, and he takes that. And actually, I wanted to get a hold of the marijuana, the THC vial, that plugged into this larger device for tonight to show you. I contacted him because it's locked in the evidence room at the police department, but there wasn't enough time to access that. So, and the products are very expensive. I will tell you that when this was found, this student unfortunately had an array of items. Typically, we find a student with 1 jewel and a few pods, but this student had an array of items, and actually was telling me the prices of things and asked if he could be reimbursed because I was going to be collecting this. I said, no, sorry.
It's worth
We're not
asking,
gonna
I
reimburse
suppose.
But
For effort.
one of the little vials was about $60, he told me. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
any other questions? These are great questions. When this rage hit, you no longer smell smoking in the bathrooms, tobacco, you know, we haven't smelled that in years. But you would smell this little sweet smell. And some of the pods are flavored. Strawberry, raspberry, cherry, and that is what you would smell. But now we're not really smelling that, so I really think it's advancing to the level of sophistication so that it goes undetected where they don't include any type of scent. So it is very, very hard to detect this.
Thank you very much. USB. You just started using a phone, so.
Hi, good evening. I'm Cheryl Defoe. I'm the school nurse here at the high school and nurse leader for the district. So as Mr. Almo had let you know, we are looking at educating our students regarding nicotine use. Mr. Almo speaks of vaping, but this program that we are presenting is a nicotine cessation program. A lot of our youth don't understand the amount of nicotine that are in these vaping products. So Stacy Yarnell and myself went to a program in Yarmouth back in March, this Project Connect, which was put on by Karen Treatment Centers. And the program, they've been running it since, I think, about 2001. Years ago, it was for people who were smoking cigarettes. This program is designed specifically for adolescents, and unfortunately, today the numbers are rising with the kids that are now addicted to nicotine. So what Project Connect is, it's a 8-week nicotine cessation and reduction program, like I said, designed specifically for adolescents. The students will meet once a week for 45 minutes during the Jocelyn period. They will be meeting with myself and Stacy Yarnell, and again, Sarah Sears is one of our part-time nurses at the high school, so we'll get her trained so she can also be part of the program as needed. Let me just do that. So it's set up for 8 weeks. It's typically set up for about 8 to 10 students. Usually, Mr. Almo didn't really get into how, well, she got into how they get referred, but typically, we wouldn't let anyone enter after the 3rd week. Usually we want to, the first couple of weeks are introduction. But during the 8-week sessions, these are some of the topics that we discuss, and there are activities. Karen, they gave us a booklet that each participant gets. I'm sorry I didn't have enough for everyone, but I'm happy to pass it around. But there's all sorts of activities and self-assessments, and they've also helped provide a curriculum. So what we go over with the students on week 1 is the cycle of addiction. Week 2, we look at health consequences of nicotine products. We talk about peer pressure and try to enforce resiliency and try to help the students build that. We look at goal setting, stress management, decision-making skills, social skills, and self-image. So it's really an interactive group, and a lot of students that this Karen has received feedback from, were very reluctant to participate. I'm sure some may feel like it's a punishment, but we hope to make it interactive and, not necessarily fun, but I mean, there are group activities, I think, that can really foster the social skills. So the goals of the program are to strengthen the participants' motivation to quit nicotine use and to remain nicotine-free, to identify barriers to quitting nicotine use and to remain nicotine-free, to develop personalized plans for success, and to identify and promote positive and healthy lifestyle. Let's see, that wasn't part of my slide. Essentially, I mean, we're working on the curriculum this summer, Stacy and I. Thank you, all right. So basically, there's been 3,000 participants over 7 states. And for overall program satisfaction, close to 93% of the participants report a positive change in behavior. 97.5% participants improve their knowledge of risks and potential consequences of continued nicotine use, and 55% of the participants reduce their nicotine use on a weekly basis. So the goal is, trying to help students make positive choices when it comes to their health. We're not asking, we don't expect every student is going to quit using altogether, but just like anything else in life, we need to practice a balance, and we can hopefully teach these kids some resilience, and they can use this, whether it be vaping and nicotine use, whether it's alcohol use, whether it's diet, exercise. So it's really just about opening lines of communication and trying to work together with the kids, and let them know that there are people that understand and that they can trust if they need help. So what we're looking to do, like Mr. Alamo said, we're looking to work with Joy Jordan to get a parent university. We have somebody that's already interested in presenting sometime in October, so we're hoping during curriculum night here at the high school to have resources so we can hand out to parents. Possibly Bill has put Stacy and I on the agenda just to give a quick, brief overview of what we're planning. We also look to educate the staff, do a presentation when school starts, roll out what the program is, and also use some of Mr. Almo's paraphernalia to pass around to the teachers so that they can understand, what to look for. And then again, I think the coaches' nights, working with our athletic trainer and athletic director, just to, that's a really captive audience on those nights to, talk to parents and talk to the athletes at that time as well. So, does anyone have any questions?
I actually have a question.
Okay.
It's it's not an open enrollment, because it's one 8-week course, so how will it work? When will you identify the students, and when will the program start? And then if there's students that are identified mid-program, like you said, you're not gonna introduce them into the program 3 weeks in, what happens to those students?
Well, that's a challenge that we'll have to, work, we're just rolling it out in the fall, so we will kind of see how things go. But I'm assuming that Mr. Almo will keep a running list, and so those kids that may get caught and have 4 or 5 weeks to wait, those are the kinks that I think administration may need to work on.
So there's not already an identified group, because you still need to go through the process of having them meet with you and the assistant principal, and that's part of this program and this enrollment. So maybe this wouldn't roll out till like October or November, once you have
Right.
maybe
And-
a group of however many you feel.
Yes, and Stacy and I also had discussed sending out some type of a survey to students just to roll out the program and say if there are any students who are interested, and that might actually be a great way to get it up and running, because to have students that are actually eager and willing to participate might make it a little bit, might spread the word too that it's not such a terrible program.
But you're not finding that it'll be beneficial for a student to join in 3 weeks in if they're identified as needing the program?
Yeah, because they're already setting goals, and we'll have already started working, working through the curriculum that, just when we went to take the facilitated training class, they didn't recommend after 3 weeks to have, a student enter, so.
Is it possible to have this 8-week program twice a year, where the beginning of the year you did it, and then maybe the second time in the year when you did it, you had more students, and then if you gathered another group, they would actually start the program in the fall, then it kind of starts that cycle?
I think the goal is to just continue to run it.
Okay.
So run it for 8 weeks, and then, hopefully we don't have anyone that needs it, but I don't
Right.
think that's going to happen. So then we would just, it's for like 8 to 10 participants. So
That's the
if we
ideal
had,
number. Okay.
if we had 5, we could run it with 5.
Okay.
If anything over 10 would be too much.
And something else that we could do also, I have the names of the students from last school year who
Right.
had vaping violations. At the start of the school year, we can contact them and their parents to see if in a proactive manner, so that they don't get into trouble this year with that, if they would like to participate voluntarily. So there's a lot of ways we
Right.
can try and drum up the business to get the first session off the ground.
Okay.
We do want to offer it on a rolling basis. Whenever we
Right.
have the population, we can start another session.
Just not mid-program?
And I think it opens the lines of communication as well with administration and with the health office, because some, they're so busy and with discipline referrals that there are times that kids are caught and we're really not aware of who's using. So I mean, one of the things that we do ask now when kids come in frequently with sore throats and, different, just even anxiety, we ask, have you drooled today because of the nicotine withdrawal symptoms? So, it's definitely, I think, it'll help us to, selectively ask some of our more frequent flyers.
Got it.
So.
Delicately put. Sharon?
So, from what I understand from other school systems is that a very, very large portion of the student body are vaping. And so this is only for the students that get caught. I'm wondering how many, every kid goes through this program?
They can.
They can.
It's just a voluntary
Not every
program?
student, but students can self-select.
Okay.
Students who are vaping can come forward and say to the nurse, I need to stop this. It's a bad habit. I don't want to get in any further than I am. And then Cheryl could fill them in about this program and enroll them in that.
All right, so then students that are caught vaping, are they sent to this or not?
Yes, we'll very nicely mandate this for them.
And the other question is, other ones I've been involved in the past have had sometimes parents required to do this with them. Is there any thought for recidivism or something where parents might have more than just a one-shot parent university?
Well, we do want to educate the parents because of the 30 vaping episodes we've had this year at the high school.
30, okay.
The parents, most of the parents are not aware, they
Yes.
don't know what the products are, they don't know how their students are accessing it.
Sorry.
So they do need some education and
Yes,
want some
yes,
education.
yes.
For this type of a program, Project Connect, it's not as appropriate to have the parents integrated into the
right.
session because the
Right.
whole goal is to open the lines of communication with the facilitator so
Yeah.
students can speak freely about this and set some goals. But we are
I'm-
open to doing more with parents and working with parents.
It looks like a wonderful program. I'm really thrilled that you're doing this.
Yeah, we're happy that we're trying to do something proactive and helpful.
That's right.
Mary?
I know that it's just beginning in September, but I didn't know if you have a plan or thinking ahead to monitoring these kids that are going through the program, like a check-in after they're doing their 8 weeks. Is there something?
Stacy and I are working this summer on developing some of the curriculum and, trying to put together the pieces as to how we're going to run each week. And I definitely think that's something she and I will do. And, she has a great rapport with the students, and I think they come to me willingly. So I do feel like we definitely will schedule check-ins, like you said, either weekly, or we'll definitely have something, set up for follow-up with them.
Great.
And I would echo that. I was thinking the same
Yes.
thing, in June of next year, it would be nice to have a report, a small report out on Project Connect. Was it successful? Wasn't it? Why? What did we find?
Right,
You know,
maybe we
even
need
if our
more
number's
people
5
trained.
kids or
Right.
10 kids, that's fine to report out on and maybe have an idea of how successful it was and how to move forward. But you don't have to remember that. We'll remember that.
Okay,
Got it.
we'll definitely
It's
keep
in
you
the bonnet.
posted. And you had a question about physical
Yes, I do.
exams, sorry.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, because this came up a couple of meetings ago, so it looks like, physical exams are now being required? Is that correct? It says upon entry, so what about?
We
that are-
follow the Department of Public Health, like their school health manual, we follow. And so what we are asking is for students to, upon entry to school in Massachusetts, they need to have a physical exam to enter. And then we periodically request them, and I don't have the document in front of me, so I'm not sure how it's worded, but typically it's like grades 1, 4, 7, and 10. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, 4, 7, and 10.
Yeah, so upon entry, so we didn't put grade 1, but so upon entry would be preschool or kindergarten. An updated physical exam is required, again in grades 4, 7, and 10. At the high school, middle to high school level, with the percentage of kids that play sports, we're getting them yearly. And, honestly, most families are taking their kids yearly, and they are usually turning them into the health office. But this is the state mandate. Not all students have health insurance. Some students that have health insurance, like under Mass Health, doesn't cover a routine physical exam. Or they'll cover the routine physical, but then the child doesn't always get established with a primary care provider because the way that the insurance is set up, they have to go to like a walk-in rather than a primary care. So a lot of our families are using like Carewell or Fontaine as the walk-in for their physical exam. So they're not always going yearly for that.
Right, okay.
Did that?
Actually, it did, yeah, it did, and I'm assuming, and with the, as far as the shots and everything, does that include this, or is the physical exam just kind of a well check, or?
So when the students go for their physical exam with their primary care provider, they are providing to us a physical exam, like a camp school form.
Right.
And typically with the immunizations. Students who are not established with a primary care and go to like a urgent care or walk-in for like a sports physical, they are not getting their immunizations
Right.
updated, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of work, and that's why I put it in here with the Barnstable Public Health Nurse and with VNA. They have immunization clinics, so we can refer students who aren't connected with a primary care for immunizations.
Okay, thank you. And just one other question, because I'm sure we have some families that are going to not agree to that. So how is that, I guess, if somebody feels strongly about some of those,
About the immunizations
Yeah.
or about a physical?
about the shots?
The
Yep.
immunizations, it's a state mandate, Massachusetts Department of Public Health. Right now, you know, you can have a letter of a medical exemption, which would have to come from your healthcare provider. Or at the time being, there is still a religious exemption in the state of Massachusetts, which needs to be in writing from a parent annually. I do believe that the state is looking at changing that, you know, due to increase with the measles. I think that they're looking to possibly do away with that, but I haven't heard anything as of now.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Have
thank
a
you.
great rest of the summer.
All right, we're gonna move on to the Chatham Elementary School Student Parent Handbook, presented by Dr. Millen.
Hi, everyone. I am going to raise this, sorry, Jeannie. I'm Robin Millen, principal at Chatham Elementary School. I am also presenting this handbook this year. We made the conscious decision to change the name of our parent-student handbook to just a school handbook, and I'll explain that why in a few minutes. But you did receive a memo from me as to the changes and also the rationale as to those changes. So I'll just highlight a couple of the key ones. One of the first ones that I wanted to talk about was the changes in some of the language, like removing the word parent in some areas and putting caregiver in, and then also changing the name of the handbook to the school handbook instead of just the parent-student handbook. When we worked as an administrative team over the summer, we talked about our families, everybody having a voice at the table. And at Chatham Elementary School, as with all of our demographics in all of our schools, we have a large number of children who are not being raised by a parent. They have caregivers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, foster homes, just a variety of situations. So we wanted to really consciously make everybody aware that they are welcome at our table. So we consciously changed the language where it was appropriate. So anywhere there's a legal need for a parent or a guardian to provide information on that legal situation, the language was changed to parent and guardian. Anywhere else where a caregiver can give information or receive information, we changed it to caregiver. So that's one of the biggest changes that we had. Beyond that, names, dates, changes, your names all changed. Some of you are now welcome here at our table as well. And then we did also include the health information that Cheryl and Janie spoke about, and I heard that also Howard Elementary spoke about earlier, so you've been up to date on that. The accountability and the absenteeism was also changed. We have a response to intervention situation with our absentee. That's from the accountability system in DESE. It's pretty straightforward. It follows our same response to intervention procedures that we do for academics, behavioral, social, emotional, but the information for the parents, because in our grade level, our children are not typically willfully not going to school. It usually involves a family or a caregiver in some way. So the language for the caregiver's responsibility in that intervention is also included. And then lastly, we did put in a new statement about the modified grading, which was a situation that was bargained in the Unit A bargaining unit, and it was included in the grading section. Other than that, everything else is pretty straightforward.
Great, are there any questions? Everybody another 10 seconds. Joe? It's not your jam, okay. Ooh,
I know,
great,
it's
all
coming
right,
down.
I think that's it. Thank you,
All right.
Dr. Millen.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda was the Monomoy Regional Middle School 2019-2020 Student Parent Handbook. Because we have some guests tonight to speak as well, we're gonna move past that tonight and move on to the presentations and recommendations. I'm gonna actually move on to step 5 and then have our school committee subcommittee talk about their recommendation after the presentation, unless anybody would like it in reverse order. I think that sounds good. So we're actually gonna move right on to number 5, presentations from our preschool partners, which would be from the YMCA. Man,
You're gonna have to talk loud.
we've been waiting all day for this rain.
If I could get a little, there we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Telsmanic. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the YMCA. I'm actually standing in for our president and CEO, Stacy Pugh. Unfortunately, she's unable to join us tonight. She's at a YMCA National Conference, and the conference is dedicated to uniting and inspiring YMCA leaders throughout the country. So she sends her regrets that she couldn't be there. But I'm going to be presenting on behalf of Stacy. So in my role as Chief Operating Officer, I've been with the YMCA movement for about 10 years, 2.5 years here at the YMCA Cape Cod. Prior to that, I was the Executive Director of the Charlestown Y, so in Boston there. So I have some experience with the YMCA, and again, we're excited to present a little bit more about the YMCA Cape Cod and our early education centers. Along with me, I have Denise Graham-Reardon, and she's going to introduce.
Hi, I'm Denise, and I am the Associate Exec of Children and Family Services. I've been with the YMCA for about 8 years. Prior to that, I was in the corporate world of early education for about 30 years prior to that.
So in today's presentation, we wanted to talk a little bit about the YMCA Cape Cod's experience, a little bit more about the YMCA as a community-based partner, specifically about our early learning programs, more about the YMCA staff and family, registration and price for YMCA early education centers, and then we'll open it up for questions in the end. But as we go throughout this presentations, if you have any questions for myself or Denise, please feel free to jump right in. So at the YMCA Cape Cod, our Y has been in association for 53 years now. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary a few years back and had a great celebration when we reached that milestone, so we're very proud of that. We have national experience in resource development for over 175 years, as we call it the YMCA movement. Over 175 years of experience, and we utilize resources from the YMCA of USA to help with our training, with our marketing, with our onboarding, with our legal team, with our membership, and our legal and government arm as well. So we have national resources from the YMCA as well. Our local leadership consists of our staff and our board consists of volunteers, and I'd like to acknowledge one of our board members has joined us tonight, Liz Rabidell. Thank you for coming tonight to support us. But again, our local YMCA of Cape Cod is run by the staff, and we have over 30 volunteer board members who meet and help provide strategic direction for us at the YMCA. We have 3 areas of focus. The Y stands for youth development, which is, we believe in nurturing the potential of every child and teen. Healthy living, we believe in improving our community's health and well-being, and we believe in giving back to support to our neighbors under our social responsibility pillar. So this is a little bit of local history of what we're currently operating on YMCA Cape Cod, but also some of the areas where we've had programming that we currently aren't running. We always have a saying, wherever there's a need, the YMCA will look to see if it's within our strategy and within our mission, and we'll partner with local organizations to provide that service if there's a need. So currently, in the Lower Cape, we're running an early education center at Stony Brook Elementary School, which could potentially be similar to the Harwich Elementary School Early Education Center, where we have 3 classrooms in that location. We also have an early education center in Cape Cod Regional Technical High School as well, where we have 2 classrooms in that high school. Again, in the Lower Cape, we offer swim lessons at Brewster Green. Our corporate office is based in West Barnstable, where we have our main pool. But again, there was a need for swim lessons on the Lower Cape, and we partnered with the Brewster Green to rent their pool and we offer swim lessons there. So every Wednesday night, that class is filled up with youth getting swim lessons. Also, we recently formed a Lower Cape Committee, which is looking at the potential to bring a YMCA to Lower Cape. How the YMCA's operate when presented from the community that they're interested in a Y. Oftentimes we operate a YMCA without walls, which isn't the traditional swim and gym building that you may think of. For example, in Falmouth, we've been working with them for the past 7 or 8 years to potentially build a Y there. In the meantime, we're operating a YMCA without walls with 2 early education centers and 5 before and after school programs there. So anytime a community approaches YMCA Cape Cod for a need for services, we certainly listen and look to see if we could provide that service. So again, those are some of the current programs that we've run in the Lower Cape. Previously, we had run an early education program at St. Lutheran's Church and Cranberry Point and Eagle Pond. We've also run a high flight program in Yarmouth, Earth Services Corps at Harwich High School, and we've partnered with Cape Cod Tech to do a build week where they've provided volunteers to do a facilities project for us as well. So Denise, I think you wanted to speak to.
I'll take this. Part of our process in early education is to provide quality care for the children and safe, healthy eating and social growth. How we do that is providing care for infants through preschools, supporting and strengthening families, safe, supportive, and caring environments, socialization, exploration, choice, and creative play. What helps us to be able to provide that is being lucky to live in a state where early education is thought of very highly and have high standards of EEC licensed. Also, we partner with Redwood Groups, which is our insurance program that is an ongoing training for teachers on child abuse, safety, and that's an ongoing training. YMCA Fidelity and Creative Curriculum Framework is how we get early education and education through play. HEPA standards, healthy eating, multiple dimensions, and diversity and inclusiveness by ADA standards, the medication needs, ESL, and partner with community resources. Our program calendar, we offer part-time full days and full-time. There are only 6 holidays we are closed for, and we do also close for 2 all-staff training days throughout the year. Whether the program is would be operating through the school year, and if the weather in the school sees fit to close, we will close also. The time where we have vacation and we're in session, and we have a weather issue, we will close on government emergencies only. The parents are working families, and we have to provide care for them. So that is what our standards are.
I think that was an old slide, so that's why it was a little backwards. But if you have, again, further questions about our operating hours, we'd be happy to revisit that slide. A little bit more about the YMCA staff family. In our hiring process, we often say recruit, interview, hire, and train employees, but we cannot skip over the screening process that we have for potential new employees. We take the child protection and safety standards extremely important, and the screening process is really important to any employees that we may potentially bring on to the YMCA. Whether it's the background checks, the reference checks, the local, national, and inquiry checks, we do it all. Training is also facilitated by state, local leaders, and again, YUSA has amazing training resources for our team. We often train locally with our in-house staff, but again, we also partner with Massachusetts YMCA training partners that we send our staff to get trained on as well. So in this YMCA folder, there's a little bit more about registration and potential pricing for a YMCA. If we were to be the early education program of choice at this location, we would offer the same pricing that YMCA Cape Cod offers throughout the Cape. So there's a convenient pricing sheet that is in this folder that offers 5-day pricing, 4 days, 3 days, and even if folks send their children to the center for just 2 days, we offer that as well. The YMCA is also a nonprofit, and we fundraise to give scholarships for families who cannot afford to pay for childcare. So we say no child is turned away due to their inability to pay. We raise over $300,000 a year for our annual campaign, and we give $800,000 away each year in program scholarships, vouchers for early education, our camping programs, and our membership as well. But a large portion of that is our early education programs. We want it to be affordable. We understand working families, and we work with every family to make sure that we could provide the care for them. Questions?
Tina? Sorry, lots of questions. All right, so looking at the pricing, and thank you, first of all, no one turned away. Thank you very much. With the vouchers, can you tell me a little bit more about how that works as opposed to the scholarships?
Sure. So let's say scholarships, we refer to those as YMCA fundraised money, that the YMCA will have that discussion with the family individually to see if they have a need for a scholarship. Separately, vouchers is a state-funded voucher to pay for that family's child care. Families will meet a income threshold, and they will be able to receive a voucher. So all of our early education centers have a percentage of children that are in the programs on vouchers, and they're integrated into the YMCA classrooms. But the thresholds for vouchers, again, that income level for that working family to receive a voucher may be lower than some folks may not meet that threshold. Therefore, the YMCA scholarships is something that is beyond the vouchers.
Okay,
Someone who may not qualify for a voucher, we
Okay.
will give a YMCA scholarship.
thank you.
What is the value of a YMCA scholarship range?
It's 10% to 50% based on a sliding scale, and it's based on the family income, and that's the starting point. So we would come back and open up a conversation with the family and ask them what would work for them if the sliding scale percentage didn't work for them, similar to colleges and universities.
Also would like to add, it's just not based on income, it's also based on circumstances of family. If something has risen, a health issue or whatever, we also take that into account.
That's good. That's good. One other, I'm sorry,
Sure.
one other question. Looking here at Brewster Harwich, so are these all full days, or do you have a half-day option?
We do not have a
Okay.
half-day option, but we do have, again, you could do 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, and 2 days.
Okay.
And the reason we do that is for staffing and ratio. Again, we follow the EEC guidelines from Massachusetts from a staffing perspective, and that's how we're able to successfully staff our centers to provide that care.
So the minimum you could participate is 2 days,
That's,
but you can come 3, 4, or 5 days.
that's correct.
Okay. And what are the hours again? I'm sorry.
It varies on location depending on what the need of the community are, anywhere from 6:30 to 5:30 in the evening.
What, do you know what Stony Brook is?
Stony Brook currently is 7:30 to 5:30.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Going once? Going twice? I think everyone's questions are answered. All right.
Thank you very much, and if you come up with any more questions after we leave, feel free to email myself, or we have our President and CEO, Stacy Pugh's, contact information there as well.
All right, great. We also have someone here today from the CDI program who's going to speak now. For a recommended preschool partner.
Hello, thank you for allowing us to come and present to you tonight. It's very nice to meet you all. My name is Kathy Boyer-Edwards. I'm a lead site manager with Community Development Institute, or CDI Head Start.
And I'm Richard Langford, site manager for CDI Head Start as well.
And I've been in Head Start. I call myself a Head Start lifer. I've worked in early care and education for 30 years, but for the last 25 years of those, I've worked with Head Start. I can't imagine doing anything else. And the past 11 years, I've worked with Community Development Institute. So the presentation that we brought tonight is really focused on who is CDI and what are they doing here, because that's the primary question that we receive when we come into any community. So let me just give you a little bit of background on Head Start, kind of what is Head Start, very briefly, and then we'll go into the presentation. So Head Start is a federally funded program. It is designed to serve the needs of low-income children and families in communities. Head Start can range anywhere from prenatal to age 3, which is called Early Head Start, or age 3 to school age, which is called Head Start. For our purposes in this service area, it is for Head Start, so it's age 3 to entering into kindergarten age. We follow what's called the Head Start Performance Standards. It's very lengthy, quite boring, but you're all welcome to read them because those are the regulations that we have to follow. Of course, we have federal regulations in terms of our expenditures, federal regulations in terms of safety, health and safety that we have to follow, and of course we follow any local, municipal, or state requirements as well. The components of Head Start really focus on quality early care and education with a very strong social service component. We recognize, as all quality early care and education programs do, is that we might have the child in the classroom, but we really need to serve the whole family. So we have a very strong parent component. That's been from the very beginning. Head Start started in 1965 as part of the War on Poverty. It has grown and changed throughout the years, so it really meets the needs. And they've always had a very strong parent component. In fact, we have what's called a policy council. So you will have parents who are on the policy council who are involved in all of our decision making. We cannot submit a budget proposal to the Office of Head Start unless policy council approves it. So they have a lot of power and influence, and that's the way it should be because parents are really supposed to be there for their children. Of course, we focus on health services, nutrition services, making sure our children are going to the doctor, going to the dentist, getting all their care and education, as well as good food that they have during the day. So that's a little bit about Head Start overview. So now I'll tell you about Community Development Institute and why we are here in this community. So what we do, we are the National Interim Manager for the Federal Office of Head Start. And what that means is that when there is a service area, in this case, Cape Cod, where the grantee is no longer receiving funding for Head Start, we are called in by the Office of Head Start and directed to operate services until a permanent grantee is named. And the reason why the Office of Head Start does this is because they are committed to making sure that the services to children and families do not stop. Because even though the funding is not with a particular entity, they want to make sure that the children and the families still receive services. So we are the only national interim manager for the Office of Head Start, and we've been doing this work since the year 2000. So almost 20 years we've been doing interim management. We do have core staff members. They have over 10 to 35 years of Head Start experience, so Believe it or not, I have some colleagues who've been in Head Start longer than I have. That's not unusual because once you fall in love with Head Start, you stay in Head Start. We have experience operating all program design options, including migrant seasonal. Richard here came from a migrant seasonal program, which is a very different entity, regional and tribal programs as well. We provided interim management services to over 200 programs, 215 to date, in all 48 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico as well. We are recognized nationally as experts in providing Head Start and early Head Start training and technical assistance. So we've worked with the Office of Head Start not just to provide direct services and interim management, but also to provide training and technical assistance. So how do we do this? We use a high-performance, strength-based management philosophy. We are community-focused and relate to local program parents and community members. We live all over the country because we could be called anywhere. Richard and I do. But we don't fly in a whole bunch of people to operate the programs. We hire staff locally. So we've already hired a local management team. They are from the Cape. They know the area. We have a couple who were with a previous grantee who we were fortunate enough to have come to us, and we interviewed them and hired them as part of our staff as well. So we have a lot of local expertise in our local program staff. We hire local teachers, teacher assistants, bus drivers, family advocates. All of them are hired locally. We are located in Denver, Colorado. That is where our central office is located. That is what takes care of the majority of our fiscal operations and our human resources. Also, we have information technology staff that are there. But we go wherever we're needed and support the program on the local level at all levels. We believe in a strong team. Richard here is the site manager. He's the one who will be here most often. He is the one who's been on the ground here for the last couple of months, getting everything started. The lead site manager, my role really is to support Richard and to be that connection between our larger team and the local team. We also have a whole slew of content area experts that come out to support the local team as well. Because what we want to make sure is that when we're in a program in interim management, our goal is not just to provide the services, that's our primary goal of course, but we want to provide stability to the community and to the Head Start program. We do that by doing a lot of training for our staff. Often in facilities, we have to find new facilities and establish in communities so that we make sure that when it is time for a replacement grantee to be named, that they will have a successful service. Again, we hire our local staff, program director, and a management team. We all operate within the framework of the Head Start program performance standards, so we have to follow all regulations. And again, we hire staff locally. We also value the contribution of community partners. We can't do what we do without community partners. Some of our best community partners are actually school districts in terms of providing services to our children and families in the community, because one of the things that we found, particularly in providing Head Start services for 3 to school age, is that if they are located in a school district, the parents are much more comfortable when it's time for their children to transition into kindergarten and into the public schools. We've been very fortunate to have a partner with the YMCA. They've been very helpful to us also as we've partnered in the community. And I think the count we looked at the other day is we've made connections or calls to 86 different community partnership agencies on the Cape. So we're really working hard to make sure that when we provide services to children and families, that is in connection and in community. We don't try to replace anything that's already in place. We really want to make sure that what we provide is a value-added service to the communities. And then, of course, we develop new contracts and agreements as necessary. So that's us, and that's why we're here. I will add to that as well. As I mentioned, we're an interim manager, and so that means we're not going to be here forever, which is really difficult for us because we become very attached to the communities in which we serve. We develop really strong relationships. But what that means is that while we're providing the services, the Federal Office of Head Start conducts a process to find a replacement grantee. So they go through a process of requesting proposals from entities in the service area, and then other entities say, okay, yes, I want to operate a Head Start program, here's how I do it. It's a very extensive review process. We don't get to be involved in any of that. That's all done outside of us, outside of CDI Head Start. That's for the Office of Head Start to complete. So we know that within a certain time period, sometimes we've been in service areas a year, sometimes 2 years. We've been in some for 5 to 7 years. It really depends on how long it takes the Office of Head Start to find a replacement grantee. But we don't go away until they have someone identified. But again, what we're really trying to do is to make sure that the services are very solid and that the staff are well-trained so that when the replacement grantee is named and we transition services to them, that they are able to be successful on a long-term basis in the service area. That's really our goal. So we have a very unique role in Head Start, but we really are here and committed to the community and the children and families on the Cape. That's us.
Thank you. Questions from the committee?
Just a comment, I really, particularly because having experience with the migrant seasonal regional travel programs, that's really important, really important. Just my comment.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? I know we've been looking forward to having both presentations, just kind of learning more about this. This has been like a 2-year process of trying to figure out the best route to go, and hoping we're doing our due diligence with everything, but everything sounds fantastic, and we appreciate you guys coming here. You're both from Colorado?
No, actually, I'm from Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Richard's from Ohio. As I said, we live all over the place.
Welcome to sea level.
Thank you.
Breathing's much easier down here.
It is.
Okay, fantastic. And no other questions right now? All right, great. Thank you guys so much. All right, I am going to move along to someone who took my agenda. Dr. Carpenter is going to briefly speak about the recommended preschool partners, and then we'll go on from there.
So just to kind of bring everybody up to speed, or for those who haven't tuned into meetings, we've been talking about, as part of our strategic plan, looking at how we can use available classroom space that we have in our 2 elementary schools to do good for our families, to see if we can find ways to provide affordable childcare in our areas that was sort of screaming in the community needs survey as a need, to provide full day, full year options, which was one of those things that was clear there. It was the full day, full year, and affordability. We put out an RFP seeking partners to come look at our classroom spaces that we had, and it was we sent out the RFP to all sorts of different other local areas. The Y was the only one that submitted submitted a full proposal for that. Right around the time that the RFP, actually I think it was just before the RFP was going out, but when we were talking about sending it out, I got a phone call from Richard, expressing some interest in bringing Head Start to this area of Cape Cod, which it's a fortuitous thing, and that it dovetails into the conversations we've been having. And I have to admit, I was holding Richard at bay because we were about to send out an RFP looking for partners that could potentially come in at both Harwich and Chatham, and then kept telling him, we're going to have to wait until this past Tuesday to see what comes in from area organizations, to see what space we might have. So we kind of opened things up, and it was clear that the YMCA was focused on starting a project here in Monomoy at Harwich Elementary School, which meant that we would have the ability to go and try to do some good for next year at Chatham Elementary School. So that's kind of how we got here, and we were calling both of them up at really the last minute, saying to the Y, okay, we need you ready to present, and calling up Richard saying, what are you doing in 2 days? We're going to need you to come present too. So I'd like to just give Joanne maybe a chance to chat about what we were doing when we were evaluating the proposal that the Y submitted and what we were looking at.
So it was my first time that I ever went through the bid process. The box came in perfectly, the envelope came in perfectly, and everything that we had asked for as a proposal went was perfectly put together. The order was perfect. What we were looking for was all there. And for me, and then we'll go to Mary, but for me it was looking at what you were going to do for children. And that's where my heart always is. And I felt like it was a complete program. And we went through all of the artifacts that you said. So I thank you for that. It was very easy to go through, but it also answered many of our questions.
And I'll just add to that, when we were going through it, I think that our priority was how are we going to serve the youth, but also how would your organization become part of our community, and we were able to find the answers to that also through the artifacts. So that was wonderful.
So I have a question. The school committee has never received the RFP. We hadn't seen it at all. Could we have a copy of that?
So it's posted on the website, but we can, so it's.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great because we didn't know what it is. What is the terms of the lease and the plan?
So for the YMCA RFP, the RFP that the YMCA responded to, it's a 3-year lease with 2 1-year options. And that's what we were evaluating first. If we look at the CDI, which would be coming into available space at Chatham Elementary, it's a 1-year lease, and it's a way to have us do good in the classroom space at Chatham Elementary. So it's 2 spaces at Harwich Elementary. It would be 1 space at Chatham Elementary, but the Chatham Elementary it's a 1-year lease, and I think, as they said, CDI comes in as a receiver here, and in the next year or so, there will be another entity that will take over Head Start for this area of Cape Cod. So, how, whether they stay with us or whether whether we do something else with the space at Chatham Elementary, I think that, we have options that we can look at, beyond that year.
So just a clarification on the one at Chatham Elementary, that's a half-day program, and it's 1 year, and either one of us, our school or head CDI, could decide to withdraw or to continue.
Correct.
And there's already bathrooms there, so we don't have to put in bathrooms.
Right, so there's an available kindergarten classroom that we would use. We had actually started to go that way when we were having conversations well over a year ago, looking at the possibility of doing some sort of Head Start program, and we had Cape Cod Child Development come here talking about what they could do. So anyway, I think the difference here is between the 2 programs, and I think this is where they can, in many ways, provide for different services and serve different sets of families in our community. The Y's full day, full year, and I'm pretty impressed. The daycare center, I know when I sent my own children back in the day, were closed far more than just 8 days. But I mean, that's really designed to kind of help, provide that wraparound service for working families there. Head Start has a very specific focus, and it's for families that that have fiscal need, and so what's tangibly different is it is completely free to families. The transportation to and from the program is completely free to families, and as they mentioned, there's a lot of wraparound supports to help these families and the children get a head start in life. I think one of the important things in full transparency is currently in Harwich and Chatham, there are no families getting Head Start supports. And I think this is one of those ways, if we can bring a Head Start program this far out on Cape Cod. And I know once upon a time there was Head Start in Chatham, but long ago it's moved further towards Mid-Cape. It would allow families from Harwich and Chatham to see it as a viable option. And I think if the committee agrees to move forward with a one-year lease with Head Start, it allows CDI Head Start to start their recruitment process. And I know that they're ready to go with a flyer, and I was saying, oh, hold off, we've got a meeting and to have and a conversation, and there's 8 people that need to vote on it. But I know they're eager to go out and start recruiting families, and I know there are families in our area that have that need. So we have I think there are 2 programs that can provide some complementary services here.
Well, I feel that, just to continue, that we definitely, the towns have needs for this. My understanding is that both the programs are not for Chatham and Harwich. They're for first come, first serve from any town. Is that correct?
Right. So
both of them?
So I think the Head Start would recruit, and I suspect that they, given that they're paying for the transportation, that they'd place Harwich and Chatham families in the Chatham facility, and if there are still seats available, that I presume that children that live nearby Harwich and Chatham would get transported to those programs. The YMCA is they would, I think in their materials, they talk about having an open house, so whoever comes to that open house has the ability to go and have their child there, including some of our staff that don't live in Harwich and Chatham, but would have the ability to have potential infant and toddler or preschool full-day, full-year supports at Harwich Elementary School, which would, I think, be very desirable from a number of our staff. And I know when we had our community forum, we had 2 or 3 of our young teachers who were there wanting to find out more because they saw this as advantageous. We actually had a teacher that lives, I believe, lives in town, but works in another school district that saw this as very advantageous because they were saying that they are currently always late to get to their school because of having to go and try to negotiate about when that daycare provider opens. So so it's not going to be exclusively for Harwich or Chatham for either of these programs, but I can imagine that if you have an open house, the number of Harwich and Chatham families and the number of your own staff that would show up, I think would fill up those programs relatively quickly. I think when it comes to Head Start, it's a need base, and I think the more, lead time we can give them to go out and recruit families and to, to do the outreach to families in Harwich and Chatham that have that need, the better off, it'll be for those families. And, and if there are spaces left, that they would backfill them.
So I have no concerns about Head Start because it's a one-year lease, and it's, evidently there are 3 classrooms that could be available. That doesn't mean that nothing's going on in them. Other good educational uses are being in there. I have a great concern about Harwich because Harwich, we have only 2 classrooms available. I believe one does have a bathroom in it because we just got down one kindergarten program. Is that correct? Or am I incorrect on that?
So we have one less kindergarten program for next year, and I believe one less first grade program for next year. But if we look forward, the demographic trend currently is that we are going to see a reduction in one section of second grade next year at Harwich Elementary, and one section of third grade the following year, and one section of fourth grade the following year, which is the trend that we're seeing at Chatham Elementary School. Why there's space at Chatham Elementary School, because just 6 years ago we could sustain 3 sections at each grade level, and now we're down to 2 sections at each grade level.
I know. I just know that so many people, I've got a sister-in-law who's living in Mashpee and works in Rhode Island, and because of the ability to work in one place from your home, and I mean, I have another relative who is working in Florida from Hartford in Connecticut. So I'm not sure. I do know that you're absolutely correct that this is the trend right now, but I'm not sure what will happen in the future with some of this. But it's not that I have any problem with the program. We did actually very quickly, Dr. Millen and some of our school committee members and I called around and found nothing that was at all concerning about any of these 2 programs. But it's just that the rent is not a great deal. It is a great service to the community. When it was at, I'm not sure why it's not at the Lutheran Church anymore, but it is something we need for the community. My personal concern is that I'm an elected school committee member locally, and I'm not sure that if some special needs child moved to town or whatever, that we might not, or even existing students, need one of those classrooms in Harwich to remain open for other reasons that might benefit our students that we presently have there. And also, is on that 3-year lease, is it, when you say 2 years optional, is it at our option or their option or either one option?
Do you want to talk options and maybe even the finance piece?
Katie Isernio, Business Manager. In the RFP, there is always a termination clause that's there, so that there is always an option at the end of a contract. It's up to the school committee to renew. The way the contract is set up, it's for 3 years and then 2 one-year options, pretty typical of the contracts that we sign for other purposes as well. But there is the choice that the school committee could make and inform our potential tenant that, a change has to be made. So there is that, there is a termination clause, if you will. What we had proposed for the rent for the, excuse me, I just have to pull up my paper. Here it is. what we had presented was for the lease to be, the rent would be $15,000 a year for the space at Howard Elementary School. And in addition to that, $2,400 annually to cover the custodial fee and the custodial supplies and maintenance fees for the use of the space as well. Then also it covers because the Y would be open additional days that our custodial staff don't work, would be what would it be cost to cover, because we would have to have a custodian at double time on a holiday to be there, so that was factored into that. So, so it was $15,000 for the rent and $2,400 for the custodial fees on top of that, which is very typical of what the other communities that have Y programs or other such programs are charging their tenants. The space over at Chatham Elementary, the fee structure is just a little bit different because of the space there. But we were looking at, if you just bear me, $625 a month for the rent of the space over at Chatham Elementary School, and $175 a month for the custodial fees and services, which would be $9,600 annually for the space over at Chatham Elementary School. Those were the recommendations. The school committee always, every year, no matter what the contract is, you have the option to renew that contract, because, you're responsible year to year for the functionalities and the things that take place in the district. So, I don't know if anyone has any more questions about that.
I think Joanne's still doing her recommendation. No, that's okay at this point. I just, before we do move forward with finishing that recommendation, if, I just wanted, I happened to bring with me, because I was like, you know what, we're talking about this, but, and we talk about the value of the room and how much we're getting for it, but I really feel that we've been working on this for 2 years, and the value is in this survey we recently did, where it was reported that 84.2% find that there's not adequate infant toddler care in our area. If there were adequate options, 91% want to use it or want to, and I think a lot of apprehension from the community comes from wanting to support our students and our residents and those who live here, but they're right here. And I think that it's fortunate that we are in a situation where we have the space to do this, and there is the need. It's going to be about communicating it and advocating for it, and having something that's a great program for someone to be part of, and hopefully it is successful. Of course, I would love to see that those Head Starts and are full of Chatham and Harwich students, and perhaps they're full of kids from Yarmouth and Dennis and Sandwich, but I think the same thing. One of the other questions on our assessment was, what are some of the barriers for childcare? And some of the barriers were travel and distance, because they didn't want to drive all the way to Hyannis to YMCA. So we're also taking down one of those barriers. So I just kind of wanted to point that out on kind of what our original mission was for this. It's not really conflicting with anything in our community. It's just further supporting it. But I don't want to take any more time from the recommendation. So Joanne, please.
Okay, I make a motion based on the recommendation of the subcommittee that reviewed the infant toddler preschool proposal to award the contract and lease as quoted in the RFP agreement to the YMCA of Cape Cod.
Second.
All in favor?
I'd like to make an amendment.
Yeah, thank you.
My amendment is that we accept one, I don't care which one, of the programs that go from the Y to, if they would accept that, but not both, and hopefully some church organization would take up the other, but the value added if we have some need, some special ed need, it will far, far, far outweigh the rent that we're getting for this. And,
You need to make a motion
oh,
and then stop.
okay, sorry. I make a motion, thank you, I'm sorry, that we just accept one of these instead of 2 classrooms.
Okay, just to clarify, you're amending the motion to read that you are approving the YMCA for the contract as presented in the RFP, but for only 1 classroom, not 2 classrooms?
Yes.
You need a second.
I would welcome the folks from the Y who could probably much better articulate their mission, but I know when I spoke to Stacy, and one of the things I really appreciate about the Y and their mission is their want to serve folks from cradle to grave, and they were very clear if they were going to come here, they were going to do 2 classrooms, and that one of them was going to be an infant toddler classroom, that they were going to be serving those families. And the need in our community for infant toddler, I think, is bigger than even the preschool. If I'm correct, I think when Cape Tech started the Y program this past year with an infant toddler classroom in less than an hour, the infant toddler classroom filled. You know, the need is there, and I think the want of the Y to, to start serving families early on in our community and to bridge them all the way up until they, get into kindergarten and then provide services to, to families that wrap around as the youth are developing and then as the families get older.
Madam
I don't
Chair,
know if I did a good enough job in.
If if you want to come up to that's fine.
So, quick point of order.
Yes.
So she made a motion, we need a second before we can keep discussing.
Oh, thank you.
So if somebody
Thank you,
wants
Ms.
to second
Scott.
the motion, then we can,
Is there a second for the amendment that's presented? Okay, seeing no second, the first motion still holds, and now we can, it's still on the floor.
so our motion has been seconded, so we can have discussion on the main motion that Joanne made.
So I'd like to amend the main motion to clarify that it would be for Harwich Elementary School for 2 classrooms.
Okay.
So could you reread and
I
include
can.
Harwich Elementary School for 2 classrooms,
Okay,
just so it's clear?
2 classrooms. Yeah. I make a motion based on the recommendation of the subcommittee that reviewed the infant toddler preschool proposal for 2 classrooms at Harwich Elementary School. Award the contract and lease agreement to the YMCA Cape Cod.
And I'll still second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
Comment?
Wait, I Tina first and then.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to make a comment, just for clarification, because the 2 classrooms with the 1 being infant toddler, is that correct? And I know I've shared this with everybody. I grew up with a mother who had a daycare, childcare, preschool program, and I can't say, I can't stress enough that infant toddler is so hard to find, and that actually makes me very happy. So I feel like I have to say that, because it is really, it's really hard to find. And if we're bringing this here, I think that's a really big plus. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Tina. Terry?
First off, thank you both for coming. Very clear, and to me, this is a very easy vote. Sharon, I share your future worry, but none of us have a formal power to look to the future for what, for example, could be a special need. That'll all take care of itself. I fully agree with, we look what's happening nationally with all the activities that kids are facing and being subtracted from a lot of opportunities. This is a win-win, so I can't encourage the fellow committee members to move on with a vote.
Thank you. So we have a second. No other discussion or questions? All right. Are we roll calling? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
1 abstention, Sharon. And the motion carries for the YMCA for a 2-year, 3-year 2 class 3-year, lots of numbers, contract for Harwich Elementary School for 2 classrooms. Thank you very much.
Just-
And then,
Just to
yeah.
provide one clear, I understand the concern, Sharon, but I think one of the things that I think we should also acknowledge and celebrate about Harwich Elementary School, we have an intensive high needs program at Harwich Elementary School that oftentimes we send children from Chatham over to the high needs intensive need program at Harwich Elementary School. So we have multiple classroom spaces dedicated to it and a wonderful staff. So I suspect that if there's any child that can be served within one of our school buildings, it's going to be at Harwich Elementary School in the space that we already have, so.
Dr. Carpenter, do we need a vote tonight for CDI as well?
We would.
Because I'm thinking it was all wrapped into this one, so that we're going to do a second motion. Agreement, I know, that's what I was just
Yeah,
checking.
so
Okay.
it's a separate agreement, and again, emphasizing, it's a one-year contract, and then just for clarity, for some folks, I know I've heard through the grapevine that there's a want of some in Chatham to see some sort of preschool for all happen some way, shape, or form, but it's not part of our this year's budget. I would say worst-case scenario, it allows us to do some good in that space for this year, and and it doesn't preclude anyone or any set of people in Chatham to continue that dialogue and look at how we can use space at Chatham Elementary School to do good for the greater community. So I think this allows us to do something this year, and we can continue to foster conversations that span beyond that.
Is there a motion? Joanne, do you have a motion? Yeah, that would be great.
I have really.
Thank you.
Madam-
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question before we
Yes,
go to that? Because I just
absolutely.
wanted to have some clarity. With Head Start, CDI, the age for that was 3 to 5, is that correct? Okay. School age, okay, I just wanted to clarify, and I think that was it. I just wanted to get that clarification. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that, I just.
Could we, you know what, if you could just, if you could come up and just reiterate her question and then answer it, that would be great, just so, because the folks at home can't hear unless we're microphoned. Apologies. Yeah.
So the question was, how many children will we serve in the Head Start classroom? We can serve up to 20 children in that classroom with 2 teachers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We don't typically do public comment during, thank you, Charles, but certainly after the meeting, I'm sure they will still be here to answer questions at that time. Joanne, would you like to continue with your motion?
Okay, I make a motion based on the recommendation of the subcommittee that reviewed the CDI Head Start proposal to award the contract to CDI for a 1-year lease at Chatham Elementary School, 1 classroom.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, great. Got through that. All right, and thank you everyone for your presentations tonight. We really appreciate it. And look forward to working with you in the future. It's gonna be great. We're gonna move on now to the 2019-2020 school calendar. The school committee meeting dates that were added to it. If you find that in your packet, there were 2 items that were not originally highlighted on the original district calendar that we approved. That would be that we are requesting the school committee approval to add the April 30th, 2020 meeting and a June 25th, 2020 meeting as dates for our school committee meetings on the calendar. Is there a motion? Sharon?
Since we're opening up the calendar, I'm looking at the school committee meeting that's the 13th of February. It's 2 days before our school vacation, and I see that the one in January is 3 weeks before that, So I'm wondering if it might not be better for us to move it to February 6th, because I think that whether it's people possibly on the committee, but more so parents or other individuals that might want to attend, that might be a very inconvenient time.
Sorry.
Oh,
I just actually had a funny thought because we just had all these presentations about attendances, attending school and not missing school. So it'd actually be very poor form for them to pull their kids out early to go on vacation, so they should be here on the 13th.
well, their
Right?
thinking is going
Noted.
to be on vacation. Even if they're around, I just don't think they'll have
All right, I just thought
attendance,
that was
so-
very ironic.
Yeah, so I'm just making that suggestion. I don't have any particular plans, but I know people have said to me over the years, because we've had this date many years.
As say, always.
And,
It's always February 14th, super romantic.
yeah, yeah, and people in the community have commented negatively about that to me, so I'm just wondering if we might want to move it.
Well, there needs to be a motion, and then there would need to be an amendment, or there needs to be a motion amending the motion.
All right.
So we could start with that.
I'll move it to the 6th.
Wait, we got on the floor, we're talking about approving the addition of the April
Well-
30th and the June 25th
Oh.
meeting.
Nobody made a motion for that.
Okay, that's fine. We can make a motion for the 6th first. Trying to make it neat and clean.
So, for point of discussion at least, I'd like to make a motion that we move February 13th to February 6th.
Is there a second? Hearing none.
I actually think that it might be a good idea, just if I recall, I think oftentimes I'm
Yes,
end
I
up at
remember
a
that.
conference.
Yeah.
And I think we also, if I recall, the last couple years, budget season's sort of fast and frantic then, and it might actually behoove us to be meeting on the 6th. If anything, it frees up the 13th in case we need to meet again because of the fast and furious pace of budget season right around then.
I was just gonna bring up that it actually pushes us forward with the budget process versus gaining us a week for the budget process. I almost called you Dr. Scott.
Woohoo! Didn't know I had my
Scott?
PhD. All right. I'm actually thinking that we don't approve the school committee calendar usually. It's usually just the school calendar, and then our school committee calendar is just typically a list of dates. And then sometimes we move them around, most specifically for the public hearing, that's usually what's around that time for the budget. So I would almost say just, we don't need to approve the school committee portion, but I saw Leah.
So we need to approve the school calendar because we're changing it. Basically, we're adding these two meetings on.
But
Separately, we have our meeting schedule, which we are going to discuss at our retreat that we're having when we set our our school committee goals. So at that time, when we have all of the meetings in front of us, all laid out with our budgeting, planning, and all of that, at that time, we could move the meetings around unless, I'm just pointing out what's happening as far as the timeline. If you want to talk about the school committee meeting schedule right now, we can, but that is a separate topic. That's a separate calendar, you are correct. And this is just approving the Monomoy school district calendar, even though it's not impacting the school district, it's just impacting our meeting schedule that weren't on the calendar before. So,
Typically, it's been the second and fourth.
Correct,
Right.
correct. And
But as we work around
right, holidays and such.
holidays, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
I would like for the calendar to go out one time, so if we need to put this off
It's
to
already
another.
been put out.
This has already been put out? Oh, shoot, that's so confusing. Well, I guess I'd rather.
it's just really a matter of it just not being highlighted on the calendar.
We approved it back in March.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, of course.
We have a
Yep,
motion.
we have a
Sharon's motion.
Nobody seconded Sharon's
Nobody
motion.
second. So, is there another motion on the floor to approve? I can't say the motion. Is
I
there
approve
another
the,
motion?
I approve, Madam Chair.
Mrs. Scott,
Oh, I lost my doctorate already. I move to approve the calendar as presented.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. No opposed, no abstentions. That was a rough go. Okay. And number 7 was the approval of the FY19 prior year invoice, but we've actually revised that. We are going to be revoting the FY19 encumbrances. And Mrs. Arsenio, Katie's gonna tell us what's going on.
Katie Arsenio. So last week, I had you approve the encumbrances for FY19, and there was a overstatement of the encumbrances. When you sign the warrants, which you do every week, we don't post them until the next day, so the encumbrances were actually artificially high because the warrants that you were signing were already factored in. So anyway, so I'm asking, please, and it's less than what you had voted. So last week, we had FY19 voted encumbrances for the general fund of $65,724.96. Now, these are in your packets as well. What I'm asking for, please, is a revote of the FY19 general fund encumbrances of $56,720.84. And since we were revoting them, I was able to add the prior year invoice to the encumbrance. That's why we could take it off the agenda.
Thank you, Katie. Does everyone understand? Anyone have any questions?
There's a piece for grants, there'll be a second part, please, but we'll,
Any questions on this part?
Can, yes?
Dr. Scott?
So the Cape Destinations prior invoice is on the encumbrances sheet
it
again?
is, and it's Jay's Equipment.
Thank you.
Doing business as Cape
I'm looking to
Destinations.
see.
Yes.
Thank you, I knew
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And then it does include the numbers on the back as well, the total, or
No,
is that
that's
different?
just the general fund, and then we'll do the grant separately.
That's separate, so the general
Please.
fund encumbrances. Madam Chair?
Do you want a separate motion? Or do
Oh,
you want to do the
Yeah,
grant?
separate?
that's fine. I think
Okay,
we-
that's
yeah.
fine.
Separate or together?
We could do them
She said
separate.
you can do them
Okay.
separate.
I'd like to approve the FY19 encumbrances revoted from our last meeting to a total amount of $56,720.84 for the general fund.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
So on the grant encumbrances, inadvertently, an Amazon purchase order was closed and was not included in the total when we presented it. So last time, the grants totaled, well, I don't have my total here. But so what we need now, please, is for the only one that's changing is the 240 grant, and it's an encumbrance of $2,034.91. The other one did not change, the 125 for the Title IV.
204 grant or 240 grant?
24, it's the 240 grant, even though it says 204.
It's one of those dyslexic moments when I look at it.
$2,034.91. We had voted 1578.73. But it,
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Scott?
I'd like to approve, I move to approve the FY19 revoted encumbrances for the 240 Fund 94-142 grant in the amount of $2,034.91.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Abstentions? Motion
thank you.
carries.
I apologize for that.
All right. Moving on, subcommittee reports. Seeing none, superintendent's report.
I think I have covered it in my little ASLP
Great.
recognitions. We're good.
All right. The technology leases as presented at our last meeting, A vote is required tonight for those. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we accept the new technology leases as presented at our last meeting.
There's a little bit more detail.
Oh, okay.
You see it at the bottom?
Oop, at the bottom. Hold on.
No.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Rather lengthy motions.
All right, so do you want,
Still want to do it?
so do you want these
She's
together?
got it, you
Do want
got it.
these
Do
together or
one
separate?
separate.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the teacher laptops, Chromebooks, and Promethean boards yes, from Whaley Wally Computers and purchase Graphics Lab from Apple via HP financing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries for number 1.
And Nancy, you can do number 2.
Oh, sure. Nice work. All right, I move to approve to award a contract to Hewlett Packard HP Financial Services Company for 3 annual payments of $49,983.11 times 3, which is a total of $149,949.33 for FY 2021 and 22. And to Hewlett Packard HP Financial Services Company for 4 annual payments of $33,728.85 times 4, which is a total of $134,915.40 for FY 2021, 22, and 23 for the Promethean boards.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
And
Katie?
I just wanted to say, and it's in your background, this was all part of the budget discussion, budget presentation. It's all in the FY '20 budget.
And we are all set on approval on number 4. We took care of that with the encumbrances. And motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain, seeing none? Good evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Favorite
Good night, all.
motion every, till next time.